Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Alibetti Spaghetti, and before we get into this video, I have a few things I just want to quickly say. Okay, so first off, I just want to apologize for the bad microphone quality. All I have is like a pair of earbuds to record off of, so it's not too great. Also, I just want to say thank you for all the support I've gotten from all you guys. Most of you or all of you are going to be coming from my Instagram most likely, and I just want to say you guys are the real ones for supporting me on Instagram and now on YouTube too. It means a lot to me. So the second thing I want to say is that with this video I am in the high silver and low gold range for ranked, so the background gameplay isn't going to be too good. However, I watch a lot of Pro League, and I believe I'm pretty knowledgeable when it comes to Siege, so I think I'm a good person to see both sides balancing for both the high rank and competitive players, but I also understand how the average player feels about most operators. And the third and final thing I want to say before I start this video off is that I believe that the game should be adjusted based on the opinions of the higher skill players, but for some operators like Castle, I'll make a change for both high tier and average tier skill players. So with all that being said, let's hop into the SAS and see the changes that can be made for those operators. Alright, so the first operator I'll be talking about is Sledge. Thinking of a possible change for Sledge was pretty difficult because I feel like he's one of the most balanced operators in the game, along with other operators, like Thermite. However, for the sake of this video, I'm going to have to think of a change for every operator, like regardless of how balanced I think they are already, just for the entertainment value. So with Sledge, I decided that the change I would make is decreasing the amount of times he can open a soft surface with his hammer. I feel like rarely you would ever see a Sledge player run out of his hammer strikes during a round, and I think that could be something you could look into for Sledge. I want it to be where you have to think about where you want to open up and not have the luxury of what feels like unlimited uses of his ability. I wouldn't reduce this drastically. I would only lower it somewhere around 15 uses of ability from the 21 he has now. I don't think it would be a huge change, but it might affect the thinking about when and where you want to use him. Alright, so the next operator is going to be Mute, and for most of the SAS, including Mute, I think that they're all very balanced operators, and each change I think of for these operators is always really difficult to make. So for Mute, I would either make him a 3-speed or give him an additional jammer. This may be a pretty strong buff for Mute, but I don't think it would be one to make him like insanely powerful. For the time I used to main Mute, I always liked to roam, and I always thought that making him a 3-speed would be an interesting change for the operator. It probably wouldn't be the best thing to do, but it would be something that they could look into. I think it would be pretty nice. I mean, if that seems too strong, you could always just give him another jammer and give him a stronger impact on the attacker's droning. Alright, so the next SAS operator is Thatcher. So for Thatcher, I believe he's very strong, but it's difficult to create a way to nerf him that doesn't totally rework him when he doesn't really need to be reworked, but in my opinion, just slightly modified. The change I would make for Thatcher is to make it so that his gadget doesn't destroy the defender's gadgets, but rather disables them for a long period of time. This change would promote increased coordination, but it wouldn't make it too much more difficult to use Thatcher. The disabling of a defender's gadgets would be for about 45 seconds and would cause the attackers to make decisions more definitively and have to think through their executes more thoroughly. This wouldn't affect him too much at the moment when it comes to hard breaching, as people quickly detonate the wall after Thatcher disables Bandit's batteries or Cade's electric tomahawks. The final operator of the SAS is Smoke. Smoke is one of the multiple operators that I believe is very good at higher levels, but the average player does not use him to his full potential, which makes creating a change for him pretty difficult. My original thought was to give him an extra gas canister to give the average player extra opportunities to slow the attackers and give themselves an advantage. However, I realized very quickly that this would make Smoke much stronger at higher levels, as Smoke already takes up a lot of the attacker's time, and giving him yet another canister would make him very unbalanced. So instead, you should just give him Plague of Doctor Elite skin. That'd be nice. Alright, so we've wrapped up the final operator of the SAS, so let's move on to the FBI. Alright, so the first member of the FBI I want to go over is Castle. Castle is again another operator that is good at higher skill levels and terrible at lower levels. However, a buff that should be made for both Castle and Pulse is any form of buff for the UMP. The gun's pretty weak and is very deserving of an upgrade, so I think raising the damage of the gun or giving it a larger magazine would do great for the gun. But if you totally want to rework the operator, there was one thought I had that could make him very viable in lower ranks. I would make Castle's barricades extend lower than normal barricades so that attackers' drones cannot come in. but Echo's yokais can freely pass through. Also, making the barricades faster to take down for the defenders would also help make Castle better. Alright, so next up is Ashe. I think that her R4C is still a very strong gun despite the removal of its ACOG, so that will be the target of her change. In my opinion, removing an ACOG is not a good way to fix an operator's weapon. Rather, the stats of the actual gun should be changed. So for Ashe's changed, I would give her back her R4C ACOG and lower either the rate of fire or damage on the R4C by a good amount. If you're not a fan of that change, you could always just make her a 5-speed who dies as soon as she takes damage. I think that would be a pretty solid buff for her. Alright, the third member of the FBI that I'll be talking about is Pulse. I already said that the UMP should receive a buff when I was talking about Castle, so of course that change will carry over to Pulse. In addition, they should probably just give Pulse a headgear where he can have hair. Man's really been missing out. Alright, so the last member of the FBI is Thermite. To me, Thermite is kind of like the poster boy of Siege, so it's hard to make any good changes to him as an operator. His rifle is average, which is pretty fine for him because he isn't meant to be a fragging operator, so there's no need to change that. His ability is necessary in most rounds of the game, and I feel he's very balanced, so there doesn't need to be a change to his ability either. So with all that being said, they should just make the exothermic charge louder and shake the room when it explodes, so that it would be cooler and scarier to the defenders. Now that we've finished discussing the changes to be made to the FBI operators, let's get into the Spetsnaz CTU. To me, the Spetsnaz is the overall worst unit of the game. None of them are really necessary or viable in any match, so there's going to be a good amount of changes to be made here. Alright, so starting off with the main man himself, we have Tachanka. It's been no secret for a long time that Tachanka needs a change, and a big one too. I've been saying this for a while now. I think the perfect buff for Tachanka is to give his LMG the ability to pierce shields and create bigger holes in walls. I think this would immediately make him a viable option, however it could make him too strong. It gives a purpose to pick him other than a joke. Also, giving him the ability to make a larger holes in the walls would let him and his teammates rotate holes and make him kinda epic. The next Russian that also needs a big change is Glaz. There really is no place for Glaz in this game in his current state. All DMRs in this game are inferior to fully auto guns, and there's really no debating that. So giving an operator a DMR with a 6x scope, or whatever the zoom is, in a game that is primarily all indoors doesn't seem like the best idea. The only time I feel like Glaz gives you an advantage is when you're being spawn peeked, but that isn't even that hard with an ACOG to counter, and on top of that, Kali is a better alternative to that too. I believe the change to make for Glaz is to give him his instant thermal back. However, I would like for the ADS time to be slowed and maybe make his turning a bit slower too. I feel like this would bring him back to relevance, but wouldn't make him the strong fragger he was before his rework that took his instant thermal. Third in the Spetsnaz unit is Fuse. I think Fuse's biggest problem is that it's just very easy to recognize where the cluster charge is and where he is because everything he does is just so very loud. Whenever I hear Fuse placing down a cluster charge, I just spray at the general area at which I hear the sound. That way I either destroy the charge or hit the Fuse through the wall. If I don't hit either, then it isn't too hard to move away from the charge and wait a few moments for them all to explode. To change Fuse, I would make his cluster charge throwable somewhat like Ying's Candelas. This would make it so that it isn't as easy to avoid the cluster charge and basically makes it a much more powerful frag. Also, it would be the scariest thing in the game to see a cluster charge just roll into the middle of the objective. The final member of the Spetsnaz unit, and arguably the best and most balanced operator of his unit, is Kapkan. Although I see him as the best operator in his unit, he still isn't very viable, but I couldn't think of a buff to give him that would actually help much, so instead just make his EDD like a thermonuclear bomb. The fourth unit of this video is the GIGN. Alright, so we're going to start out with the spawn peeking brothers, or Rook and Doc. The only reason Rook is really viable is because of his guns, as his gadget doesn't really seem to have much of an impact on gameplay. I don't think I could change the MP5 either, so just make him and Doc much wider. Alright, so we basically included Doc's change with Rook, so we're going to hop on over to Twitch. For Twitch, I kind of feel like she's just a worse version of Thatcher's ability and a better gun. So I would just say to change her, give her drone legs and let it run around super fast. Finally, we've got the absolute chonk Montagne. I would simply just change his shield into the riot shield from Black Ops 4. No other changes are necessary. The fifth and final unit of this video is the GSG-9. We're going to start off with IQ, and the only change you really need to make for IQ is to give her back her grenades. Please, Zuby. It would just be so easy to give her back a grenade. It would be really nice, please. Alright, now we have Jaeger and Bandit. We'll be putting them together for this change because the change will be affecting both of them. They had something taken from them a while back, and I believe it's time that their stolen item is returned to them. That's right, Jaeger and Bandit mains. You guys will be getting your ACOGs back on the Mate 70 because I hate you guys and you all stink. Frick you, Bandit and Jaeger mains. The final operator to go over in this video is Blitz. Blitz is yet again another operator which is viewed very differently at different levels of skill. In low ranks, Blitz absolutely terrifies all of his enemies as no one knows what to do but panic. But in higher ranks, people know how to deal with him. I think Blitz should be made faster, but increase his ADS time and reduce the effectiveness of his shield's flashes. It can keep him as the same frag-heavy trading operator without making him too annoying for lower-level players. Alright, that's all I've got for today. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see me extend this into a series, let me know by liking the video and commenting. Again, I want to thank you all for the support. You guys mean so much to me. I actually lost my voice making this video, so I don't know what I'm gonna do next. But again, thank you for the support and thanks for watching. Adios.
Let's go where the water is blue. I can't stop thinking about